Hello, and welcome to part 2 of the two-player racing game tutorial. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make your car accelerate and turn around the screen. So let's jump right into it. Go ahead and log in and navigate to where you've saved the game, or if you don't have an account, go ahead and load up the game from your files. So here we go. And again, if you have an account, make sure that you click See Inside to see the code. If you don't have an account, all you have to do is click Create and then click File up here and click Load from your computer and navigate to where you saved that file. Alright, to begin coding our car to accelerate, let's move these blocks over that we've already made. We'll move animation over a bit and we'll do the one clicked over here. Now we're going to go into Events and select a one click block. And then we are going to set the position of the car to where we want to start every time we click the green flag. So let's head on over to Motion. And what we're going to do is set it to point in direction 90. And let's move this over here so we have plenty of room for it to race across the screen. And we're going to say go to the X position of whatever this is here. So it might be different for whatever you're programming. But mine is negative 167 on the X position and negative 72 on the Y position. Then we want to make sure that when we turn the car that it rotates around its center point. So remember, if we go into the costumes, we centered the car right around the cockpit area. So let's go ahead and make sure the rotation is set properly. So we're going to go to Set Rotation and we're going to place that here and we're going to select All Around. Now when we click the green button, or the green go button up here, it should return to its original position. And we can see our awesome animation play as well. Now that we have a good starting position for our car sprite, what we need to do is create a new variable. And what this variable is going to do is store the acceleration value of the car traveling across the screen. So let's head over to Variables. And I'm going to make a variable and name it Red Excel for this sprite only. So when we make the blue car, we'll have a separate variable to store its acceleration values. So we're just going to name this one Red Excel, short for Red Car Acceleration. And then we're going to initialize this variable to 0. In the last video, we discussed why this is important. To recap, this will help us keep our car from doing anything funny when we start the game to play it over again. Now that we have that, let's head over to Control and grab our gaming loop, which is known as the forever loop, because everything in this loop is going to run forever until we hit the stop button. Now that we have our gaming loop set up and a good starting position, what we're going to do is make a function. And what this function is going to contain is code to make our car accelerate across the screen. Now we're just going to have our car accelerate across the screen in a straight line first, and then we'll add turning later. So to do that, let's grab an if-else block first, since we're in the control already. Now we're going to go to My Blocks, and we're going to make a block, and we're going to name this Acceleration. And we're going to make sure that Run Without Screen Refresh is not checked. So you want this to be not checked. I'm going to click OK. Now we're going to take acceleration here. And what we're going to do is we're going to accelerate until I stop pressing the up arrow key. So to do that, what we're going to do is grab a control loop called repeat until, and we're going to repeat the code inside this until I am not pressing the up arrow key. So let's go into operators and grab the not operator, and then we're going to go into sensing, and we're going to get the key pressed block, and we're going to set it to the up arrow. Then we're going to place that into the repeat until input. Now we're going to place the if then else block in here. And we're going to start with the if. We're going to say if acceleration is greater than 6, we're going to set it to 6, because we don't want our car to accelerate over the value of 6. But if you want your car to go faster, just put in a higher value, or if you want to go slower, put in a lesser value. So let's head on over to operators, and we are going to get the greater than, and we're going to set that to 6. Oops, 6. And then we're going to go into variables, and we're going to get the red Excel variable. And let's place that into the input here. Now we're going to set, instead of changing the value, we're going to just set the value to 6. So that way that's the maximum speed it can go. And it may fluctuate by 0.3 or 0.2 depending on how we get our car to accelerate, which you'll see in a moment. So we're going to put the set my variable to black here, and we're going to put this to red excel, and we're going to say set to 6. Now we want the car to move 6 spaces across the x and y plane, depending if we're turning or if we're going straight. So to do that, we're going to grab in the motion area, we're going to grab the move block, and let's grab the move block, and we're going to place it under this, and we're going to place the red excel variable inside its input. So whatever red excel's value is, it'll move that. In this case, if this is true, it'll be 6. So it'll move 6 spaces across the screen. Otherwise, if it's less than 6, that's what this else is, we want to accelerate. So what we need to do is get a change by. Now, this video game sprite is going to be quite small when we shrink it down so it can fit on the track, because we only have this area here to play with to make a track. So we're going to do accelerate by a positive 0.3. So we're going to change red excel by 0.3 if it's not already greater than 6. So we're going to set this to 0.3. Now if you want to accelerate faster, of course add a higher value. If you want to accelerate slower, add a lower value, or a lesser value. And then we need to move by whatever value is in red excel. So we're going to go back to motion, and we're going to grab the move block, and we're going to set that to the red excel variable. Let's see, here is red excel. Alright, now that we have that, what we're going to do is put if block, an if and else block, if then else block inside the forever loop. So we're going to go back to control, and we're going to grab if then else, and place that in there. And we're going to say if the up arrow key is pressed, we're going to accelerate. Otherwise, we're just going to set the move to 0. And we'll change that in a second so that it's more realistic, because the car just doesn't stop automatically. When you hit the brakes, the car will continue to move forward until friction stops it. So let's go ahead and just start with going in a straight line, and then we'll add some braking power in a minute. So we're going to set this to up arrow. We're going to get acceleration. And then we're just going to say move 0. Just for right now to make sure our code works. You can move and set that to 0. As you can see, when I click that, it started to go. Let's restart that. So we started the car, and if I hit the up arrow key, it's going to move and accelerate. Let's try that again. Now if you watch here, you'll see the car accelerate by changing the value here since it's set to 0. So I'm going to move, and you can see it gets faster the longer I hold on to the key. And you can see sometimes it'll go over 6.3, and that is okay. And it makes it a little bit more realistic too, because the car, it never really stays at its top speed. It'll fluctuate between its top speed. Alright, now that we have that, let's reset our car and stop the program. Now that our car can accelerate, what we have to do is have it deaccelerate when we release the up arrow key. So we're going to make another function block that's going to contain code to make it slow down when we're not pressing the up arrow key. So to do that, what we are going to do is go into my blocks, and we're going to create another one and call it deaccelerate. And we're going to make sure that we don't check run without screen refresh. Alright, let's click OK. And let's make some more room here. So we're going to zoom out, and let's move these over a bit. Now we're going to edit acceleration again, so we'll keep that close by. Let's move that over there and this up here. Nice, that should give us some good room. So let's zoom back in. So in this one, we want to repeat the deaccelerate until we hit the up arrow key again. Because when we release it, the car should slow down, and when we hit the up arrow key again, it should speed up. So let's go ahead and grab a repeat until block. And we're going to attach that to the bottom of the deaccelerate block. And then we're going to go into sensing, and we're going to grab the key pressed and place that in here. And we're going to say key pressed up arrow. So that way we can accelerate if we need to, when we're slowing down, and if we need to accelerate again, we can just hit the up arrow key and it'll allow us to accelerate again. Next, we're going to grab two if blocks. We're going to use two if blocks instead of an if then else block. And we're going to attach these together. So we're going to start with the first one. We're going to say if acceleration is less than 0, we're going to set it to 0. Now, if it is less than 0, our car will start traveling backwards across the x and y plane. And we don't want that to happen, because when a car slows down, it should just stop in place after friction takes over. So what we are going to do is we're going to go to operators, and we're going to grab the less than operator, and we're going to set that to 0. Let's go grab our variable, red Excel. We're going to attach that in there and place that into the first input, or the first if then block. Now that we have that, what we're going to want to do is set red Excel to 0. This part of the code here will be where the car fully stops. So we're going to go to motion and grab move, just like in acceleration, but this time we're going to set it to red Excel, which has the value of 0. We're going to attach that to there. Now on this one, we're going to say if red Excel is greater than 0, we're going to decrease the speed of the car by a minus 0.3. So to do that, we're going to go back to operators, and we're going to say greater than. We're going to set that to 0. We are going to go ahead and grab red Excel, place that in there, put that into the next input, and then what we're going to do is change my variable, which is red Excel, by a negative 0.3. So a negative 0.3. And we're going to place that inside the if then block on the bottom. And we're going to go to motion. We're going to do move again. And then we're going to grab red Excel again. Now what should happen is when I release the up arrow key, it should slow the car down to a stop. So to do this, what we're going to do is add this to our code. So we're actually going to get rid of this if then else block and switch it with two if blocks. This will make it run a little bit smoother. So we're going to grab the two if blocks. We're going to put them together. And the first one will be the acceleration. So we'll say if up arrow key is pressed, then acceleration. And when we say if not arrow key pressed, then deaccelerate. So let's go to operators, grab the not. And we're going to go to sensing and grab the key press and set to the up arrow. I'm going to place that into the input. And then we're going to put deaccelerate. Now when we run this code, let's put it back in our gaming loop. When we run this code, when we hit the up arrow key, it should accelerate across the screen. And when we release the up arrow key, it should slow down. Let's see if this works. So I'm going to do that, and then I release, and you can see it floats and then stops. So let's shrink this down so you can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to set this to 170. We're going to reset the code and go into full screen here. Now when I press this, you'll see the car speed up, and when I let go, it'll slow down to a stop. Pretty cool, right? Let's stop the code here and go back to our coding area. So you may have noticed when we were trying out that example of the car driving across the screen that the animation was out of sync. Now we're going to fix that. So what we're going to do is reuse this if then else block from the forever loop over here, and we're going to add it into the animation. So what we're going to say is if our car is accelerating, so if the acceleration red Excel variable is greater than 0, the car is accelerating, so we'll say play the animation. Otherwise, if it's not greater than 0, we're just going to switch the costume to the car sprite, or the car sprite costume that doesn't have the wheel spin animation. So let's do that now. So we're going to remove this move 0 block, and we're going to place the animation block in here, and we're going to take the switch costume block and put it in the else input, and we're going to say if acceleration is greater than 0, animate, otherwise put the car costume of just the red car standing still up. So we're going to go to operators and get the greater than. We're going to set that to 0. Then we're going to go into variables, and we're going to grab red Excel, place that into the operator, and place that into the input. And now let's place that into the forever loop of the animation when clicked block. Now let's give that a try. So we're going to restart here, and we're going to zoom in. Now the animation should be in sync. So see, I'm going and I slow down and stop, and then the animation goes back to the costume of the car standing still. So let's stop this program and then go back to our coding area. Our car sprite now can accelerate and deaccelerate in a straight line, and the animation is in sync. Now what we need to do is have our car turn, depending on whether or not we've hit the left or right arrow key. So we're going to add some code to the acceleration and deacceleration function to do that. So let's start with the acceleration. So with a car, when a car is accelerating and going fast, its turning radius is larger, so it'll turn on a wider arc. And when a car slows down, the car will turn tighter. It'll turn on a shorter arc. So to do that, what we're going to do is add 2 if blocks to the acceleration function and 2 if blocks to the deacceleration function that detect whether or not we've pressed an arrow key. And also too, a car can't turn unless it's accelerating or deaccelerating and it's still moving forward or backwards. When it comes to a stop, it shouldn't be able to turn. So we need to take that into account too. So let's start with the acceleration function and add 2 if blocks. So let's head over to control. We're going to grab 2 if blocks, and these are going to go on top of the if then else block. We'll connect those two together and place those on top. And we're going to rearrange this here. Excellent. So let's go over to the operators, and we're going to grab an AND block. And what we're going to say is, in the first one, if the right arrow key is pressed and acceleration is greater than 0, we're going to turn right. And we'll do that for the left as well, because our car needs to be accelerating above 0 in order to turn, because the car can't turn if it's standing still. So let's go ahead and say the greater than operator block and place that on one side and say greater than 0. Let's grab our variable, redEccel, and we're place that in there. And we're going to go to sensing, and we are going to grab the key press block and place that into the other input and say right arrow. And we can just duplicate this and place it for the left arrow too. So we're going to duplicate, I'm going to say left arrow. And let's make some more space here. So I'm going to zoom out, move animation over a little bit, and we're going to move acceleration over so that way deaccelerate has some room. Zoom back in. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go into motion and grab the turn right block and place that into the right arrow. And we're going to do the turn left block into the left arrow key. And we're just going to say the car will turn 6 degrees. Now if you want it tighter, you can put a lesser value. If you want to do a wider turn, put a greater value. So now that we have that, let's see if it turns. So we're going to click go, and you can see that the car turns. But if I release the up arrow key, it doesn't continue to turn. So what we need to do is duplicate this and change a few of the values to make it turn while it deaccelerates. So we're going to stop the code here, and we're just going to duplicate what we made here. Duplicate. We'll move this part here, and we're going to attach this to the top of the if block in the deaccelerate function. And like I said before, when the car deaccelerates, it's going to turn tighter. So to turn tighter, we're going to make this 8 instead of 6. So the higher you go, the tighter it gets on its turn, and the lower you go, the wider it will turn. So we'll say 8 degrees. Now let's try that out. I'm going to put it into full screen. And we'll hit the green flag to go. And as you can see, as I'm accelerating, I have this wide circle. Now if I release the gas pedal, or release the up arrow key, you can see that I do smaller circles. We can even tap the front arrow key, or the up arrow key, and make it do like donuts. So you see here, as I'm accelerating at full speed, as you can see with the redEccel value there, it has a wider circle. But when I deaccelerate, it has a shorter circle. And let's just try that for the left arrow key as well. Wide circle, shorter circle. Now this is important in a racing game because when we make the racetrack, there will be wide turns and tight turns, and the challenge of a racing game comes into whether or not we can hit those tight turns or wide turns at the right speed. Alright, excellent. We have our car driving around the screen. So in the next video, what we're going to do is add the racetrack, checkpoints, and the game over screen. So until then, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video.